if you're not reading it, or at least perusing it every couple of months, every month, you're not really understanding the point of it. These two documents, the AIA being standard in the industry, but generally modified to some extent on every project, and the subcontract, which is our subcontract, is the roadmap of how you manage a project. Combine that with the specs, obviously, and the plans. The specs go into more detail about how things you do. But it is a roadmap of what your rights are, what your responsibilities are, and so therefore, it's the roadmap of how you're supposed to manage a project, what you're required to do, what you have the right to do, and what other people have the right to do, and what other people have the responsibility to do, as well as yourself. Fair? So me, I keep it right in my top drawer, and I read it at least every couple of months, even when I don't need to. And unfortunately, I read a lot more when I have to. But you want to understand it better than anybody else in the room for you to be able. You don't want to ever have to use it, or cite it, but you need to understand it. And hopefully our agreements with subcontractors and owners, that we never have to pull these out, okay? That's when you know, it's kind of like the referee doesn't want to be seen, you know the referee's doing a good job kind of when he's kind of non-existent in a football game or basketball game, he makes a few calls, keep it under wraps, but he sets a tone. He never really has to pull out his flag. Referees are throwing 20 flags a game. A lot of times it's questionable as to the refereeing as opposed to the players. But I think that if you pull these out, then there's generally something wrong. But if you know them and you're running your project accordingly and referencing the specifications, you're going to do fine. So since somebody said the subcontract is what they want to learn about, that's what we will start with. MAPP subcontract that everybody in town says, oh, that's a one-sided contract. And it's out to make everybody's life miserable. It's false. That is just absolutely balderdash. And we will go through it. It is almost, with the exception maybe of some time duration and requirements, almost directly in line with the AIA subcontract for whatever it is. The difference is it's more informative, okay? In other words, where the AIA subcontract may refer you back to this contract attempts to spell it out. Secondly, because the AIA is not a manager of subcontractors, I need to say something. So bear with me. Yeah. So, for instance, the AIA contract and general conditions gives the general contractor 20 days or 21 days, I'm not sure exactly what it is, or 14 days, but it's a pretty long period of time to give notice that there is a delay from the time they know about it. So in the AIA subcontract, they simply repeat that language, basically refer you to the general conditions and say, whatever the contractor has to do to the owner, the subcontractor has to do to the contractor. It's kind of that pass-through language. Well, think about how ridiculous, how it would not allow you to manage your contracts with subcontracts if you had 20 subcontractors, some of them whose duration is not 20 days on a 10-month project. And if they waited 20 days to tell you, oh, I've been impacted, how that would impact you in your ability to manage and overcome the notice. Because the purpose of a notice, while a lot of people think of it as it's setting yourself up for a claim or setting yourself up for a delay claim or setting yourself up for a lawsuit or something to that magnitude. And while it is an important part of that process, the notice, the true, real importance of a notice is to give the other party the opportunity to correct. See? The reason there's a notice in the contract for us to the architect and the owner is so the architect can correct the problem so it doesn't impact the project. And so the owner can decide whether or not he wants to do something so he doesn't impact you. So you tell him, hey, I think the order of magnitude of this impact could be, if you made a decision today, could be 30 days. Well, 30 days is $100,000. But for $20,000, if you spend 20, you can keep the schedule. Well, that's our job, okay? That's what we should be doing with owners. Excuse me. When we get impacted, MAPP is not interested in spending more time on a project. Repeat after me. MAPP is not interested in spending more time on a project. MAPP makes money when we finish on time. Repeat after me. MAPP makes money when we finish on time. Period. When we finish behind schedule, we do not make money. I don't care if they give you the time extension. Okay? And so there's some owners who say, oh, I'll give you the time extension, but we're not going to give you the money. Let's fight about the money. Well, that's just ridiculous. Time on a project is money. We got overhead. So MAPP would rather the owner say, what can we do to avoid the impact? So, timely notice is important. The difference in our contract and AIA subcontract in that regard is we give them 48 or 72 hours to tell us. And the reason that is, and that's why when somebody comes to you and says, well, you know, my attorney, and as soon as they say that, subcontractor says, my attorney says, then immediately replace attorney with the word caster. Mr. Castor says, okay, and he has this belief, well, what's good for you with the owner is good for you with the sub, and that's just not fair and reasonable. So those are the subtle differences. The notice provisions are different. The same is true. We require them to notice us if they're doing changed work within 7 days, 5 days, 2 days. I don't know what it is. It's in addition to that. This is shorter time frame than what the owner requires us to tell him if we're proceeding with change work. Those are one of the dramatic differences in the contracts. There used to be a dramatic difference between our indemnity clause and the AIA's indemnity clause, but that's changed now as the state has changed the law and has reduced the ability to indemnify yourself with a third part, with a contracting party. So now it's much similar. The language is much similar, and most people are not going to disagree with it. Some of the other things that are different, that are really not really big deals, is just, and this is a little one-sided, but it's something that we feel strongly about because we want to discourage people from filing lawsuits. It's the language in there about legal fees and and whatnot. So there's a little discrepancy there. After that, the boilerplates are very similar, just more detailed with information. So don't let anybody tell you that, and hopefully after today, you can have enough knowledge where you can maybe talk to people. What I would ask is, what are the major things that y'all see that subcontractors disagree with so that we can attack those first, so we can talk about why they are the way they are.
Wow.
Anybody else? There's no reason for anybody to disagree with our indemnity clause anymore. It is absolutely in lockstep with the state law. So there's nothing that they should, but let's go through what indemnity is.
Pay when paid.
Let's go through indemnity. We'll go to pay when paid next. Indemnity, just read through it. To the full extent permitted by law, subcontractor agrees to defend, indemnify, and save harmless contractor, owner, and any other party which contractor is required under any project-related contract, including but not limited to the prime contract, to defend, indemnify, and save harmless their officers, agents, servants, and employees from and against any claim, allegation, cost, expense, or liability, including pre-suit and post-suit attorney's fees, investigated, or any other expense related in any way to the claim or allegations, attributable to bodily injury, sickness, disease, death, damage to or destruction of property, including loss of use thereof, alleged breach of contract, or alleged breach of warranty caused by, arising out of, resulting from, occurring in connection with, or connected in any way to the subcontractor's work, its subcontractors, sub-subcontractors, material men, or agents of any tier, their officers, directors, agents, or employees. What that is basically saying, if the sub is involved, or in any way the cause, okay, of any incident, accident, damage, bodily injury, death, then they will hold MAPP harmless and indemnify us, okay? What they're saying is we will take care of all of anything that is deemed your responsibility, we will pay for it, okay? So if
Deemed our responsibility, right?
deemed their responsibility or MAPP's responsibility. In other words, the owner's contract is with MAPP. So the owner is going to seek MAPP out. For instance, if the owner is sued because of an accident on the job, electrician gets hurt on a job, maybe has $100,000 worth of hospital bills or whatever, the electrician didn't have workers' comp, they're going to sue everybody for that. They're going to sue MAPP. They're going to sue the electrician. The electrician will say, hey, I got you. I will indemnify you, and I will take care of any judgment or anything that is legally due to that. I will handle it. Not only that, I'll defend you in court. I will pay for the defense of you in court. I will handle everything that is your task. That's what it's saying. Pretty simple. Any questions about that? Okay. It says further, subcontractor shall be obligated to immediately provide contractor, owner, and any other party which contractor is required under any project and related contract to defend, indemnify, and save harmless with a defense against any such claim to the extent such claim is based on allegations involving subcontractor's work. So if it's alleged to be involving the subcontractor's work, they have to provide us a defense. Next, subcontractor's obligation herein to indemnify shall be based on the comparative negligence of the contractor and the subcontractor, and the subcontractor shall be limited in its obligation to indemnify the contractor to the extent of the subcontractor's percentage of negligence, fault, or liability. This is the difference. This is what has changed. We used to say, if you're 1% at fault, you're 100% responsible. Okay? Our language used to say, if you're 1% at fault, you're 100% responsible. The reason for that is that perhaps, in our mind, that they 1% weren't there, it would never happen. So they need to be 100% responsible. However, the state has changed that law and has made that something you cannot do. So now this language right there, so when somebody says, oh, you're my attorney, Mr. Castor, says your indemnity clause is unfair. You say, well, wait a minute, what's unfair about it? Hey, you hold me 100% responsible. No, go read the contract. It's lockstep with the state, and it says right here, just highlight it to them and say, comparative cost. If we're 99% responsible, then we gotta pay for it. 99%, we have to pay for 1%.
And Mike, that's because we were required before the state changed the law to indemnify the owner for 1% of responsibility of them, right? And so we were basically
Sometime.
passing that down.
Sometime. There's two things. Sometimes the owner would require that. The AIA contract does not require
But the
that.
state laws allow them to require that.
It used to.
Right.
State law used to allow the owners to require that of us. Now it does not. Doesn't allow anybody to contract with anybody and have that kind of language in there. But we felt there was two reasons. One is obviously sometimes it's a pass-through, but our belief is that if the subcontractor is there and he's 10% responsible, then there's the possibility that the incident would not have occurred had that 10% not been there. And that's the legal theory behind it without getting too good. Subcontractor's obligation to defend under this provision shall commence immediately on notice of any such claim or allegation, and such defense obligation shall not require the filing of a suit or demand for arbitration. Furthermore, such defense and obligation shall be based on the allegations of such claim and not the subsequently determined validity of such claim. Okay? Practical application for this. Accidents, defective work. If after the project is complete and the defective work is discovered, that is their responsibility. They have to defend us if there's a claim. Even if there's not a claim, they have to indemnify us for all of the costs. So it's what you would refer to if you have a defective work issue after the project is complete, or if the project is ongoing. It's their responsibility, and all you gotta do is, if it gets to that point, this is what you want to refer to. Skip the statutory cap. Should subcontractor, because that's really a workers' competence issue, and that's you won't deal with that very often. You need to know it. There's a cap on how much people can recover. Should subcontractor or its insurer refuse a tender of defense and indemnification pursuant to this provision, contractor will have the right to defend, evaluate, settle, etc. Likewise, subcontractor will reimburse and party indemnified hereunder. So, what typically happens is when there's a defect claim, everybody runs for the hills. And so the subcontractor thought, it's not my responsibility, and even though whether it's their responsibility or not, if you remember the language in there that says upon allegation, if it's alleged that their work was defective, they have to defend us. And so they'll run for the hills, and ultimately, this is the language that tells them that you can run for the hills. We're going to defend ourselves, and we're going to expect payment. We're going to come after you for that payment if you refuse to get it. Should owner or any other person or entity assert a claim or institute a suit, action, or proceeding against contractor involving the manner or sufficiency of the performance of the subcontractor's work. This is where we're getting into the defective work issue. Subcontractor shall, upon request of contractor, promptly assume the defense of such claim, suit, action, or proceeding at subcontractor's expense, and sub shall indemnify and save harmless, as well as anyone obligated to be defended, indemnified, and held harmless from any liability, loss, damage, or expense arising out of or related to such claim, suit, action, or proceeding. Indemnity is a very complicated issue, but simply put, is if the sub is involved or alleged to be involved, okay, he owes us a defense, indemnity, and hold harmless to the extent that he is allegedly the cause. Okay, So, or ultimate cause. But he doesn't have the right to say, whoa, which a lot of the subs want to do is, we'll defend ourselves, you defend yourself, we'll run up a lot of legal bills, and when it's finally determined what the percentage is, then we'll be responsible for that. That's not the case. They don't have the right to do that. They have to defend us 100%. Okay? Especially the construction defect claim. All right? If the claim is against them, they have to defend us. So, practically speaking, they never do, but this is the language that that they are in breach of when they don't. Okay. Dennis, what are your questions about indemnity? How would you approach the subcontractor now who says your indemnity language is unfair? I don't think you're going to get much of that anymore, unless they just think that it's the old language. But any other questions?
No, it's always one they vote about. They always want to kind of make some kind of change to it. Basic rule of thumb for us is any modifications in the boilerplate, you need to send me a letter to it so I can review it. We don't usually, as soon as they mark it, it puts us, you can ask Maggie, we have to start all over as far as getting it executed. But most changes that we agree to are really in the Schedule A.
We cannot modify the indemnity language. Okay? Now that it's the way it is, there's really no reason to modify it that I'm aware of. We always listen to somebody's issue and want to be, but look, if you're alleged to be at fault, what's the right thing to do? Defend me. It's the same thing that we do with our owners. If the owner, you know, if there's an allegation that we have damaged somebody's sidewalk, we're going to defend the owner. I mean, that's just what we do, and that's what subs should do. We always will, and I want to make sure everybody knows that. It's a flow through that kind of provision as well, but we take that responsibility to heart, and we definitely want to indemnify people that we do. Pay when paid. Any other questions on indemnification?
Okay.
Go ahead.
How is percentage of fault determined, and is there any language in the indemnity clause that kind of leads to that?
Well, the general contractor is the sole judge of that kind of thing until it goes to a third party. You know, if it's just between us boys and girls, then we're going to say, you got 20%, you got 10%, you got 20%. But if everybody gets in an uproar, then the third party's going to have to decide, and that's what you try to avoid. You know, you want to think twice about that just because of the fees involved. No, it's our decisions are final. You know, with regards to stuff that's just between the two of us, we get to make those decisions. They get to dispute those decisions. It's kind of just like again, the AIA contract says that the initial decision maker, they define who that is, it's usually the architect. If the architect makes a decision that you disagree with, what you want to try and do is obviously, as being 99.99999% of the time, is work it out. You know, we're not here to, we really don't want to be involved in all this garbage. But when it can't be worked out, then you have the right to make a claim and dispute there. And we follow the dispute resolution process, which is clear in both contracts. We'll get to that. Pay when paid? Any other indemnity questions? Pay when paid. Stephen, what's your question?
Well, just payments in general, a lot of times casters, contractors come back and try to reduce either pay when paid or any of the things that's gonna hold them up from getting payment. Some of the paperwork processes and some of the things we require prior to getting payment, or reasons we can hold payment. He tries to reduce it.
Let's go to that. You go to Article 3. Let's talk about payment in general. What is the subcontractor required to do to get paid? Here we go. Let's start with it. Within 10 days after the date of transmission of this subcontract to the subcontractor, subcontractor shall submit to contractor for contractor's approval a detailed schedule showing a proper cost breakdown with a proper share of associated overhead and profit of the price, capital P, according to the various line items or parts of the work, capital W, for use only as a basis for verifying subcontractors' applications for payment or supporting contractors' applications for payment under the contract. There is so much in that one paragraph that we're gonna dissect and tell you what it is. How many of you guys get a schedule of values from your subcontractor within 10 days? So it should be telling you how to manage a project, okay? On the 8th day, somebody should send a reminder. If I ain't got your schedule of values, please know I cannot process your payment without an approved schedule of values. On the 10th day, please note that I do not have your schedule of values and I cannot process your payment without a schedule of values. Don't wait to the last minute. Please abide by the contract. Okay, so you're able to, because what they normally do is send it with their first payout. Could be 4 months into the project. Well, that's unacceptable. And you have to let them know that. I don't have time, I want to get all these behind me. So that's your language that you can refer to. Give me your schedule of values or I cannot process your payout timely. Have your document trail. Make sure that your administrative assistant's helping you with that, so she has the document trail. So when they call up, well, if we had schedule values 4 months ago, he's reviewing your schedule values. According to the various line items or parts of the work. The reason I've called out capital P and capital W is for those of you that may or may not understand. When a item in a contract is capitalized, it's a defined term. It is referring back to somewhere in the contract that defines what that is. For instance, capital P, R-I-C-E, is you would go back to the first page and you would find somewhere, page two, price, P-R-I-C-E. So it's defining what the definition of price is, okay? And then if you go to the first page, further would say the subcontract price and give that value, and then it's in parentheses, capital P-R-I-C-E. So it defines it, and so now when it's referred to, in essence, you can insert that language, that number, where it says the price. Capital W-O-R-K is Article 1, work, and it defines work. And then Schedule A, work, is referred to, and so therefore further defines it. And on the front sheet, you will see work. And so those combined are the definition of work. So wherever it defines work. Some subcontractors will say, well, you see, you got in here work. You could be thinking, I'm a glass contractor. I don't do flooring. I don't want to be, it's not the work. I don't do all the work. No. It's defined as their Schedule A work, Article 1 work, front sheet work. Okay? Anytime something's capitalized, there's somewhere else in the contract that is defining that. All clear? And this is the interesting part. How many subcontractors have tried to use their schedule of values to provide a deduct or an add or something other than to get paid by? You had that happen. Well, I'm going to give you a credit of $1,000 because that's what I got in my schedule of values. This language is pretty clear they can't do that, right? Is that fair? Does everybody read that the same way I did?
Yes.
For use only as a basis for verifying subcontractors' applications for payment or supporting contractors' applications for payment under the contract. We got an example right now at Baton Rouge High. Alpha Insulation, doing the basement waterproofing, their schedule of values, $8,000 for the basement waterproofing. The owner, they're taking that out of the job, the owner thinks it's worth more than that. Alpha Continuum, I mean, for 7 letters now. Our schedule of values shows it's $8,000, that's all we can give you back. Brett, could you please provide us the cost, the labor, just, it may be $8,000, okay? We're not saying you're wrong, but that's not an argument. The owner is not gonna listen to that argument because this is the same language in the architect, AIA contract. Your schedule of values, normally, not all the time, sometimes that language is removed. But your schedule of values is also not something that can be used against you, or you can't use it for yourself. You still have to prove your money. So, Brett, please, provide us how many square feet, how much labor, how much material, with a price, back 3 years ago when you priced it, and prove yourself. And he won't do it. So, anyway, hard head. I guess he learned from the best. Okay, next paragraph. The owner before each monthly billing date. The monthly billing date is capitalized. So guess what? It's defined somewhere else, right? Front page. Monthly billing date. Usually the 25th of the month. So it's real clear. Get it to us by the 25th. If you don't get it to us by the 25th, we can't process it time. Okay? Now again, we're not trying to beat everybody over the head, but you know, these are the things that they need to do to timely get us paid, get them paid. Plus the value of material equipment for incorporation of work suitably stored at the project site or other approved location, if and only if the contract documents provide for payments to contractor on that basis. Contract documents obviously capitalized, obviously defined elsewhere, and basically that's the owner contract, this contract, plans and the specs and all addenda, and all change orders, et cetera, et cetera. So what it's saying is, we're telling you you can get paid stored materials on site, but we're qualifying it that you have to look for the contract above us to see if they allow it, okay? Within 7 days, here's where we kind of start getting into the payment and pay part. Within 7 days after receiving a payment from the owner under the contract, contractor shall make a progress payment to subcontractor. Whoever's got their phone on, please mute.
I think they got it used. They're not paying attention.
Who's all on the phone? You know?
A lot.
A lot of people?
Yeah, 20.
Can somebody mute their line who's on the phone that's not muted? We're hearing you here and it's bothering the hell out of me.
Mute everybody here.
Within 7 days after receiving a progress payment from owner under the contract, contractor shall make a progress payment to subcontractor equal to the value of the completed work, capitalized, stored work, as of the corresponding monthly billing date to the extent approved by contractor and allowed and paid by owner on account of the work. And after deducting all previous payments, current retainage, meaning a reserve equal to the retained percentage times the allowed value of completed work, and stored work plus any additional reserve provided for in. That's the key word there. Plus any additional reserve provided for herein. So if you think that there's more money that you need to hold back, this is where it's going to tell you you can hold it back if you legitimately have a good reason to hold it back. The first part of that sentence said, what? To the extent approved by contractor, you, and allowed and paid by owner. Okay? So let's say they submit $100,000 for payment. We think they're right. We approve it in our system. We send it to the owner, and the architect says $98,000. He scratches through it, he certifies the payout, we get paid 98, what do they get paid?
98.
98. This is the language that allows that to happen, okay? All right, if the owner fails to make regular progress payment to contractor under the contract, and such failure is caused solely by contractor's default and not by a claimed act or omission of subcontractor, notwithstanding the foregoing, contractor shall within 7 days after receiving written demand by subcontractor, make the progress payment to subcontractor described above and otherwise due, subject to any deductions as provided in paragraphs B and C above. I skipped all of that because that's the key language about pay when paid that most attorneys, Castor, doesn't realize is there, and he, for whatever reason, forgets every 30 days, and he wants to complain, and when you ask him, because they just scratch through it, we don't sign pay when paid. Well, what's your issue with pay when paid? What is your issue with pay if paid? Because if you go further in the language, and I'll point it out to you, but our clause, all this clause is pay when paid, which means that's at 7 days. When we get paid, we will pay you in 7 days. That's pay when paid. Pay if paid is the language we haven't gone over, but that is if we get paid, we will pay you. If we do not get paid, if the owner defaults and does not pay us, we are not going to pay you. That's what they all want to object to, okay? And our reasoning for that is real simple. We're not a bank. We are not the financial entity financing the project. Well, how do we know? Here's the same thing here. If you want the finances of the owner, take a look at it. It's Exxon. You worried? It's the state of Louisiana. Are you worried? If it's Digital FX, maybe they are worried. But they're businessmen and women just like we are. And that is a decision, a business decision that they need to take. There are people that will not. They say, no, I don't want to do work if Digital FX is the guy financing the project. Okay? I'm not comfortable with that. But maybe I am. Okay, well, Capital One's financing it. Capital One's got a loan. Okay, I'm okay with that. So that's a decision they need to make. They need to make that early. But it is not a decision we want to make for them. So we're telling them in our contract, that's what we're trying to do, is educate them. We are not the bank. And the language for that is MAPP construction. If you go down to the fourth line item to the end of that article, MAPP construction is not the entity financing the project. And the subcontractor expressly agrees that all payments are contingent upon payment from owner. Pay if paid. Sub fully understands that in the event of non-payment by owner to contractor, the sub has legal recourse against the owner through the mechanics lien laws or other legal procedures for their correct monies due, and will not look to the contractor for said payment. Sub hereby assumes the risk of non-payment by the owner to contractor for subcontractor's work. I think it's said it about 3 or 4 times in there. And the reason is we want to be very, very clear. Toledo does not have $20 million if the bank or the owner doesn't send us $20 million. Okay? It's real clear here. We are not going to pay it. Now, what Castor usually answers to that, because what we will usually tell the attorney is they'll say, we'll say, look, it's your decision. If you don't want to find, that you don't think that this company is worthy of your credit, that's really what it is, a credit decision. Fair enough? It's issuing somebody credit. If they're not worthy of it, that's your decision. No, we think the state's worthy of it. We think Entergy is worthy of it. It's not that. it's, you know, what happens if I'm the plumber and the owner holds $500,000 on the project because the roofer didn't do the roof right? Okay? Fair question, right? I did my work right. The owner didn't default, he's got the money, but he's not paying you because the roofer didn't do his work. Does everybody remember what I read just a little bit before? Do you think that covers it, or do y'all not remember it? What it says is, if owner fails to make regular progress payment to contractor under the contract, and such failure is caused solely by contractor, MAPP, default, and not by a claimed act or omission of subcontractor, notwithstanding the foregoing, contractor shall within 7 days after receiving written demand by the subcontractor make the payment. Okay? Covers it. As soon as you read that to him, oh, I'm okay. Okay? The practical effect of that is exactly what we just talked about. The roofer the owner holds $500,000 and tells you, I'm holding $500,000 because the roof is leaking. Okay? The plumber says, I'm done. Or, heck, man, I'm 90% done. Don't hold my progress payment up. He sends you a letter. And if all that's true and accurate, then we pay him the $90,000, whatever it is. That's what it says. It doesn't change anything up above. He has back charges, all that kind of stuff still applies. You know, or if you hold his money because you think he's not done, that still applies. Okay? So the language that is key there is, if owner fails to make regular progress payment under the contract, and such failure is caused solely by contractor's default, MAPP's default, or someone under MAPP's jurisdiction that is not this subcontractor. If it's our fault, we pay. And what that's basically saying is that if the owner is not in default, and if the subcontractor is not in default, we pay. Any questions on that? Should solve everybody's problem.
What happens if the owner's late on paying? Not if he's holding money, but if he's just late.
Then it applies.
Within
Well,
7
you asked that
days,
question, you have-
within 7 days after receiving a progress payment from owner under the contract, contractor shall make payment. You know, so many subcontractors, I shouldn't say that. A lot of folks think, I submit my bill on the 30th, it's due on the 30th. That ain't how it works. They submit their bill on the 30th, it's due when? 7 days after we get a check. It's due. I'm due 100 grand. The response in writing to them should be, your money is due when we get paid. 7 days later, we have not been paid, and your money is not due. It's real, you know, it's really clear, and I think it's something that you want to make sure, and when somebody accuses you of that, please, please, please respond and put it in writing. It is not due. Doesn't mean you can't pay the guy if you got a situation that you want to pay him, he's destitute or whatever. Everything's different, but that's not what they signed up for. Subcontractors, 2 paragraphs down. This is an important one. Subcontractors should not be entitled to any payment until this subcontract has been properly executed and all documents and information to be furnished by subcontractor have been supplied to contractor. So, if they haven't got their lien waivers in, or if they haven't got their schedule values in, or if they haven't got their subcontract in, certificate of insurance, a host of other things that we require, they can't get paid. Okay? Now, there should never be a situation where somebody says, well, my subcontract's not signed, or I don't pay it, right? Because nobody does any work on MAPP job site without a fully executed subcontract, right? Right?
Right.
Right. Okay? And that's, you know, somehow or another, people have gotten lax with that, and we're not doing that anymore. We don't issue letters of intent, okay? We don't issue notices to award. We issue contracts, okay? Does everybody understand that? Everybody on the phone understand that? You're gonna need for sale. Seriously, we do not, it takes just as long to send out a good letter of intent as it does to send out a contract. Because the letter of intent should have scope of work, requirement for certificate of insurance, the boilerplate contract. It's just as easy to do this as to do that. So make sure you do that, get that behind us. Any questions on progress payments? Those are usually the two, pay, payment and paid. That's the theory behind it, it's the practicality of it. Any other questions about it? Again, it is very fair. Most contractors have the similar language, pay and paid. Those that don't, that's fine. There are some subcontractors that will not sign pay if paid. That's fine. There are some subcontractors that will not sign pay if paid, only if, you know, they think that the owner, that they should do what they should do. They should research the owner's pocketbook. And that's what you tell them. Well, I don't believe in pay if paid. You know, a lot of the fear of pay if paid is just because they hear that it's a problem. Pay if paid, it's kind of like the play, run. It's not really a big deal. It's just, hey, don't make your credit decision based off of MAPP. Make your credit decision based off of the owner. Okay, simple. If you don't think Raising Cane's is going to pay or has the wherewithal to pay, then don't do the project. And that's as simple as that. Well, I want to see Raising Cane's finances. Well, we'd be happy to ask for them. If that's what you want. And Raising Cane's may or may not give them to us. I don't know. But if they don't, then the subcontractor can do what? Make a credit decision, right? That's all it is. All right. Pay when paid. Indemnity. What else do y'all want to talk about?
26.
Who?
26.
26. Dang, go. I'm getting all hard. Okay. 26. That'd be dispute resolution.
Default. Getting there. 27's next.
Okay. Basic overview of default is you got to provide them a notice. You got to give them an attempt to cure. You got to give them the time to cure the default. What's up?
I was just back there looking for cookies.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, I'm not. Nothing.
Mike likes cookies,
I was
too.
just saying I was being left out of the joke. The basic overarching default. When a subcontractor is not performing in some aspect of the project, it could be schedule, it could be quality, it could be not paying suppliers. There's a host of reasons, and they're all illustrated here. Default is when you're not performing. You're in default. You have to give them a notice of default. Correct? You have to give them a notice of default. Why?
They gotta know.
Gotta give him the opportunity to correct. Simple as that. You have to give him notice because it's the right thing to do. Okay? It also gets their attention.
Yes.
If you really want to get serious about it. It also gets their attention. But again, it doesn't need to go there. What's the MAPP rule about sending somebody a notice of default? You won't find it in the contract.
Pick up the phone.
What's the MAPP rule?
Pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone. Call them. I have a rule that I think everybody, I hope, has heard, and if you haven't heard it, I hope you do. Now, you already do it anyway. I never write anybody a letter unless I call them and tell them I'm writing them the letter and it's coming. Okay? Especially one that doesn't have good news. How do you feel when you get that nasty letter comes across your desk and the client says, you just want to spit? So think about that, you know, turn the coin and think about the other guy. So pick up the phone and say, dude, or dudette, I am about to send you a notice of default. Please, 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 please don't make me do it. But it's ready and it's going out in the morning. So let them know it's coming. It should, first of all, if it gets to that point where you're putting them in default, it should be no surprise, because there should have been numerous steps along the way, a lot of communication, a lot of email correspondence, a lot of schedules not being met, a lot of conversation documented by email or by a letter that says you're not meeting your schedule. You told me you were going to have 10 precast panels erected every day. It's 5 days, you only got 30 erected. There should be a trail leading up to the default. Another thing that I think you ought to think about is if you're issuing a notice of default and you cannot attach anything to the notice of default that makes you feel good about yourself putting somebody in default, you probably should think twice about putting them in default, because you probably haven't done your job in letting them know they have a problem. Fair? So if you send a notice of default and all it says is, hey, you're behind schedule, you're in default. And I've seen some of those. I used to write some of them. But if you do that, then you're probably on soft ground and you may want to think twice about it. Or Stephen?
Or put somebody in default if you don't have a plan. If you have to put them in default, you should have a backup plan for their work, ready to go.
I think it's a good idea to have that backup